Then I subsequently found out globally 2.3 billion people, I'm saying billion, which is about 33% of our global population, also have bladder issues.
When did you feel comfortable talking about and saying, look, I have a UTI. I am just a teenage girl going through a lot.
I need to take care of my health, and it doesn't matter if anyone sees it as a taboo or not. Actually, that doesn't matter that much. It matters to me that I feel good and I feel okay.
No Bullshit Talks is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. There's too much bullshit out there, especially when it comes to business. This podcast aims to highlight what's true and what's not in the world of entrepreneurship, bringing you honest and raw conversations about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Each week, my guest will be a high-performing entrepreneur sharing the ups and downs of their journey and helping you prepare for the road ahead, while providing you with actionable insights and absolute gems of knowledge. Stay tuned as I introduce this week's guest. Peony Lee is the founder of Jude, a healthcare company that smashes bladder taboos. She's raised the highest amounts of money pre-seed of any UK female founder, and even turned down the Dragon's investment on Dragon's Den. Peony's dedication to healthcare was even shown during the pandemic, when she helped distribute 6 million pieces of PPE to care homes and frontline workers. I present to you this week's guest, Peony Lee.
So welcome, Peony, to No Bullshit Talks. Thank you so much for being here today.
So good to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about your journey because you've got a lot to talk about and I want to cover a few things. But I guess for our audience who don't know you, do you want to just describe a little bit about who you are, what you do?
I'm Peony. I'm the founder of Jude. Jude is on a mission to break what I think as Britain's last greatest taboo, which is bladder health and incontinence. People don't want to talk about this topic because it's embarrassing, but we are doing that. And we have a solution for people in the form of supplement that people can take to really care for themselves. So yeah, that's what Jude is about.
So what made you start this? Because it's quite a random company. It's very niche. So there's definitely a story behind it because you don't just go into bladder health on a whim. So tell me about that.
Exactly. So I had a 10-year-long bladder infection when I was 14 years old. And it was just impossible to live a full life because every recess I'm running to the toilet, every meeting I'm running to the toilet as well. And in my earlier career. And not just that, it's the pain when I go on holiday, it's the anxiety of actually going out of my house. I don't drink as much water because I was worried. And actually it's every single aspect of my life that I have to adjust and adapt. And I think as women, we're so good at adapting to situations. And, we're amazing, wonderful creatures. But at the same time, when it comes to women's health that we're suffering, we don't tell other people. We don't want to seek help. And for me, 10 years has been adjusting my lifestyle to such a bad way to adapt for my bladder health. And one day I just woke up and I said, I need to change this. And through nutrition, diet, actually seeking out support from different people, I'm now completely free of any bladder issues. And then I subsequently found out globally 2.3 billion people, I'm saying billion, which is about 33% of our global population. It's crazy. Also have bladder issues that range from UTI, from overactive bladder, incontinence, and somehow it's not being talked about. And I was thinking about why. It's just because it is so embarrassing.
It is. I feel like
just because of that.
If someone says, "Oh, I have a UTI," you think, "Ew, you're dirty." Yeah, that's probably the reaction, right? And it'll be like, "Oh, what's wrong with you? What, do you not clean yourself?" And I think that's probably the image that people would say. And I guess it's going to be education, right? First of all, about UTIs and how they're caused. So I want to talk about that because you were 14. Did you even tell anyone? Because if I had a UTI at that age, there's no way I'm telling anyone because it's embarrassing. So
it is really embarrassing. I think one of the sort of main blocker for me, why I stopped seeking help is because I went to a doctor and he asked me, have you already had sex when you're 14 years old? Because that is one of the main causes of UTI. And I was so embarrassed because I haven't had sex. And I don't know why he would ask this question. And so my mum was there and she was looking at me and I was like, dude, like, I don't know why this is happening to me. I'm already in pain.
Yeah.
And then you're asking me this question. And so that from there on, when I have recurring UTI, I just didn't want to say anything. And I didn't want to go to another doctor that's going to ask me some similar awkward questions. And so I think people do draw these symptoms and these issues exactly as you said, like as dirty or that you are not controlling yourself well. And I think, you know, the word incontinence actually started from the Shakespeare time. And it actually does not mean urinary incontinence. It just means you're completely out of control. And so I think, you know, the stigma that's associated first with the language and the word is so entrenched in us, but also just leaking wee, like who wants to talk about that at all? And so, that's, I think it's what happened to me. And I think what happened to so many people.
See, I think when I hear incontinence, I think old grannies. That's what I think. And it's so, even I'm saying that, and I'm not someone who I would consider to be judgmental or anything. But when you think word association, you say here incontinence, I think giant nappies and then grannies who can't control themselves.
Care homes and the smell year round and all of that. And like, God, if you're just having a breakfast and then somebody say incontinence, you're just like, what are you talking about? Yeah, exactly. Right? And so I think it's so interesting because when I started the company, I didn't tell a single soul that I'm going to work on incontinence because I knew people are going to have that sort of reaction. But I thought to myself, well, let me prove it to you how I can modernize it, how I can make it cool. And when I started to do that, and then people started to say, oh, a young woman is doing something in incontinence, and I should take a look what that really is about. And we're slowly, gradually really changing that dialogue. And, you know, we're also very careful with the words that we use as well. So instead of incontinence, we use leaks. It's a little bit better. It's a bit more normalized. I feel it's a bit more personal, right?
Exactly. So it's less medical, but it's actually just a bit more human.
Exactly. Or like if you just never leak, but you always need to go to the toilet, it's just like, oh, that gotta go moment. Like, oh gosh, you know. And people find it better to digest these related symptoms that they also experience. But when you say the word incontinence, even they have bladder issues, they're just like, I do not have this issue. So I think a few things, right? Like what I do for, you know, promoting, you know, this category and this awareness is that I'm just going to come out and say, I have this issue. I have UTI. I have leaks. I had incontinence, but you don't have to have it. Yeah. And I think that's how it all started.
You were 14 when you first had this, and you were in Hong Kong still, right?
Yeah, I was in Hong Kong.
So for me, that is even more shocking because so many things out there are more taboo. I know that even for what, talking about periods were taboo. Like my mum's Chinese, which I think you knew already. And so she told me all the stuff about like her culture growing up, and she was saying all the things that when she started having a period as well, she couldn't talk about it because it was taboo. You couldn't be saying stuff. And so for me, I'm more surprised because it's even more taboo in your culture in Hong Kong. When did you feel comfortable talking about this and saying, look, I have a UTI. I am not dirty. I don't sleep around. I am just a teenage girl going through a lot. Please support me and don't think of me in a disgusting way. Like, how was that for you?
I think it has been quite debilitating, actually, because nobody knows what I'm going through. And everyone's just like, oh, Peony's going to the toilet again, you know, at school. Oh, Peony, why do you have to go to the toilet so often? And I think, you know, when you're teenagers, you're also quite mean.
Yeah, definitely.
So in Hong Kong, I actually had a terrible time. But I came to the UK when I was about 15, 16 years old. And people are a little bit more relaxed, I think, about these issues. And it's not really until in my early career, there was a time that I need to take time off work because of my UTI. I told my line manager I had a UTI. Sorry, I have to take time off today to go to A&E. And she told everyone in the company that I had a UTI. And then I was like, oh my God. I was with the impression that it's going to be just me and you. This is what I told my line manager. And I think what she told me was quite a revelation. And it really changed my mind about my own issue. She was like, in my country, she's from Germany. In my country, UTI is not associated with anything dirty. It's literally just maybe you sweat a lot, or after like doing some sports events and you had a UTI, or maybe you haven't had enough water. And from my point of view, it's a very common thing.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Why am I so paranoid about it? Why should I be paranoid about it? Actually, I was ill. And so I need to have the sympathy. And I'm like in pain. And so after that, I was like, you know what? This is the moment. I need to take care of my health. And it doesn't matter if anyone sees it as a taboo or not. Actually, that doesn't matter that much. It matters to me that I feel good and I feel okay. And I think because of what she said, in combination with the doctor visit that I had in the A&E that day, was really that moment. Waited for 3 hours in A&E, went to the doctor's GP's room, and let's just do a dip test. He don't seem to have any issue at all with the dip test, but I was peeing blood, just 2 hours ago. And I told him, he was like, oh, lots of girls come into my office and said these and that, but your dip test didn't show anything. And I was like, yes, it didn't, because I drank so much water when I was sitting here 3 hours waiting for you. And of course, it diluted the concentration of bacteria in this little pod. And so, yeah, it didn't show anything. Can I get some antibiotics? No, we can't prescribe you antibiotics. And then I asked him, should I just go private then? And then he said, I wouldn't do that, because some of the private doctors are not necessarily that good anyways. And now this is complete medical gaslighting.
I don't even know where to begin, because I have an issue with the NHS, and I love the fact that we have free healthcare. And obviously, I'm so insanely grateful. But there are obviously so many things wrong with that. My entire family work for the NHS as well. So it's like I have this like torn thing, because they all work for the NHS, but I know they're great at what they do.
Yeah.
But I have been into A&E, been treated on the NHS or not treated properly on the NHS so many times, it's quite disgusting. Like, doctors take a Hippocratic oath about doing everything they can for patients, and not just doctors, nurses, but the attitude of a lot of them absolutely stinks. Like, I've had several problems over the years, and I'm also going through like gynecological things that I'm trying to look at. And I've had same sort of questions in A&E. I spent New Year's in A&E this year, and I was in the worst possible pain, and I was writhing on the floor. And they also asked me the same thing. How many sexual partners are you currently having? My fiance was sitting right next to me as they were saying that. And it's like, they just assume, they go, we're going to do an HIV test, we're going to do STD tests. And I was like, you didn't do anything else. Like, they just assumed sluts. And that's why you're having these problems. And then I've had in the GP, I was booked in for a smear, and they go, oh, you're not ready for a smear. And I was like, okay, but you've put me in for one, can you do it? She's, oh, we can, but we're going to have to throw it in the bin. And I'm like, okay, there's laws and rules around it, but it's also your bedside manner is atrocious.
Yeah.
And how do they make you feel? You're in this situation where, as you said, it's already embarrassing for lots of people,
Yeah.
as are gynecological problems too for women. And it's already difficult to, I guess, accept it yourself. And then to have to explain it to someone, a stranger, that you're having these problems and you're in pain, you don't understand what's going on, the anxiety of that, to then just be gaslit and be disregarded, like you're wasting their time. That's how they're treating you. And then it's like, oh, actually, those doctors are not that good. But if they actually paid me some attention and actually, helped me,
Yeah.
I don't care if they're not as good, because actually they're going to be better for you. And when I hear these stories, and it's like everyone seems to have one, I just don't understand how there isn't this quality control in the NHS and people are looking into this, because people are dying because of this stuff. People are suffering serious mental health issues because of it. And it really upsets me, like hearing your story again. And, how old were you at this point?
I was, I think, 22.
So that's a really like an age where you're thinking a lot about yourself. You're really self-conscious.
Yeah.
It's a really scary age to have that sort of stuff going on. And you're in a new corporate job, and not been in the country that long. What happened then? Like, you had this situation in A&E. He gaslit you. Talk me through that. Like, how
after that, I've never really been to A&E ever before,
Well,
and actually, I also never really went back to GP and NHS.
Wow.
And from when I was 23 to now, in the last 4 years, I haven't had one UTI. I haven't had any issues. But in between, I still have, recurring UTI, and the ways that I sort of really approached it as I went private, actually. And it was a 15-minute appointment. And I told her about the types of antibiotics that I was on before. She said, let's do a urine culture test. We'll send your, sample into the lab. We'll culture it, and we'll see what type of bacteria are really in that culture. With that, we can then prescribe you an antibiotics that actually fit you. And I was like, that makes so much sense. Why hasn't anyone told me about that? And then once I've got the antibiotics completely cleared, and then she also then advised me after that, start taking thrush medication, start taking probiotics, and watch out your sugar intake, because that actually helps proliferate bacterial growth in your urobiome. And just a 15-minute appointment that is about, let's say, £70. It gave my
£70. That was going to be my question. How much does
it's
that cost?
Expensive. It's expensive.
But that's actually not that
but
bad
it's
for your
not.
health.
Exactly. And so I think, it's the difference that I'm seeing with the quality of advice, with how personalized they can get.
Wow.
And then it is my long-term health. They've given me information about what I can do. And so I started watching out my sugar intake. I cut down dairy because it's actually quite inflammatory. So, the coffee that I'm having today is non-dairy. I started eating more fiber. I started drinking more water because of the fear of, it kickstarted a vicious cycle in my health. And I want to bring that experience to everyone that is also experiencing these issues, embarrassing issues, but not from a £75 15-minute appointment. And I think we can do so much more just from what we do at Jude to serve other women.
Oh, I love it, because £75, it is a lot of money to just have to do, to just get the right advice. But if you think about it, that £75 is life-changing. And for you, it literally was life-changing. And so it's a no-brainer. You probably spend £750, like, just to get that advice and feel supported and less of anxiety. So for me, it's like the NHS are really letting down a lot of people, because they could be supporting people out there. It is difficult. I mean, there is some level of truth to what that guy said about they're not that good out there in terms of private doctors, because some are that way. Some are doctors who have not done so well and they've gone into private because it's easier and they can make a quick buck, and some might not have good ethics. But there are more independent health companies out there than ever before right now, right? And the fact that there are so many and they're all doing quite well shows you there's an absolute need, and we are all worried about our health and we're not getting the treatment out there. So with Jude, tell me more about, because obviously I feel like the best companies come from those who have experienced it, right? Those who have realised that solution isn't out there, so they're going to create it themselves. And you are living that whole thing, so you understand it. Tell me more about what Jude's doing to help other women, and, what people can do to help.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, we have a community, a private community on Facebook group. We now have about 13,000 women in there, and they all have these issues. And there is nothing that the community would not talk about, from sex to UTI to incontinence during sex, all of these topics. If you, felt like there's something that you can't talk about, we are already talking about it. And that community is designed to make you feel less isolated, less lonely. And through hearing other people's stories, you can see actually these are the things that I can also do. Some of them are already taking Jude supplements, which is designed to help reduce the urgency, reduce that got to go feeling and incontinence and make you sleep better at night because, a lot of my friends are waking up at night to go to the loo 3 times a night, and that can already destroy your day tomorrow. And so they're tracking each other's progress on taking the supplements, tracking each other's progress on, I'm on week 5 and I'm also doing all these other stuff. I'm cutting down alcohol and, overall as a free community for everyone to feel like I am here to kickstart this like virtuous cycle of my health. And so this is a free community. And then we have so much resources on our blog, every single like promo video that we do on Facebook and on Instagram, it always lead with value and advice. We, record that with nurses, with comedians, with gynecologists, with doctors. So when you see Jude on your Facebook feed, it doesn't just say buy our supplements. It say, do you know that you might be peeing the wrong way your whole life? And this is the right way to pee. And so it gives you a little bit of information, lights up your day a little bit and teach you something that, give you things that you can really improve your long-term health. And of course, we talk about the products that we have and the products that we sell. We've gone through, quite a lengthy R&D period to really bottom out what kind of ingredients, what kind of formula can support bladder health. So if I look at, if you're suffering from, let's say, incontinence and bladder urgency, there is prescription medication that you can take. And these prescription medication, 60% of women comes off it after 3 months because of side effects.
Oh, really?
It's related to early onset of dementia. It affects our parasympathetic nervous system. It is just acting against our natural pathways in our body. It is so harmful, actually, that so many women had no choice but to go off it, accepting that their incontinence is going to be forever. Do you get that situation, that mindset that they're at, right? They have to give up the medication because it was that bad for them.
So they're basically in suffering no matter what they do. They've got bad choice either way. That's
exactly
horrible.
So that's the only option currently NHS prescribe. And of course, you can do pelvic floor exercises, which I totally recommend everyone to do. But the sad truth is we are busy women and we are busy people that we can't even hit the gym twice a week. So how can we do pelvic floor exercises every day for 12 weeks? And so what Jude is really about is like, let's put a solution together that's accessible and that's easy to do. And so it's a format of a supplement, a dietary supplement where you take 2 a day. And for, from 8 to 12 weeks, you will start to see tangible result. What does that mean? It means that when you're out and about, you don't have to think about where the next loo is. And actually for a lot of people, that is a huge relief for a lot of people. You can sleep through the night, and we all know the feeling of needing to wake up. And so that is also a massive relief for people that sometimes a lot of our customers wake up 10 times to go to the loo.
It's all of that. I'm just thinking of so many people I know. Like I know people who won't go to like concerts or like out to gigs because they're scared about going to the toilet. And it's like actually they're not able to do things they enjoy because they're worried about that lifestyle. And you mentioned about going through the night. Now I had a period of time where I just started getting up all the time in the middle of the night, and I'd get up 4, 5, 6 times to pee. And I started getting worried about it myself because I was like, that's not normal. I don't normally do that. What's wrong? And then I was so tired because your sleep is consistently disrupted. And sure, it's like 3 minutes or whatever, and then you go to bed, and I usually fall asleep quite quickly. But if you do that over and over again, you're not getting a good period of sleep. And then that would make me exhausted the next day, and I wouldn't be performing very well. And it just takes a toll and it adds up. And every bit of medical advice I got, they would just say, oh, well, you do that anyway, right? They go, oh, if you go pee, you'll get the urge to pee because if you just slightly get woken up by something, it's nothing to worry about. And they dismissed it. And it made me more anxious and I was like, I'm still going every single day. Luckily it's gone down a bit, but like I might have had a UTI or something like that and I just didn't know and I wasn't treating it. And actually I had a period of like 6 months of that. And I was so drained and so worried about it. And it kind of knock-on effects my business.
Definitely.
And had I actually felt confident and had a community to talk about it, I'd have realised that I'm not alone.
Yes.
And there was a solution for it.
Yeah.
And oh my God, what that would have done for 6 months of my life would have been life-changing.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, that's not 6 months. That is about 20 years, 30 years of their lives. And so, what I'm the most excited about is like, we've talked about how, the state of affairs is like there's prescription medication and that's really it. And there's surgery, obviously. But what we're doing is we're opening up women's health and we're putting our capital and our money into research and development to advance more in women's health. And that is what I'm just so excited to do more and more as we grow. And the other thing that we also did is like we do active campaigns. So I don't know whether you know, in the last decade, 60% of UK public loos have completely closed down. They've disappeared. They've vanished. And so what do people do when they're out and about and want to go to the loo?
I go to a pub.
They go to a pub, they go to M&S, or they just need to like rush around to find something. And actually that is a symptom of a bigger, I guess, or a silent epidemic we call of our nation is not talking about bladder health or is not inclusive of hidden disabilities that people have. And so when there's a reduction in public loos, you see people wild weeing. You see people doing all these things to cope with it or not going out at all to cope with not just not wanting to do it. And we then launched a Golden Loo in Covent Garden, free of charge, super clean. Anyone can just pop in. And what we witnessed was actually quite magical. We have, of course, you imagine your grannies that come off from, theaters. You have your mothers, you have children, you have quite handsome men coming into the toilet. And you just have a range, an array of people that actually find this really helpful or that they just have that urgency that they got to go. And so look, needing the toilet, gotta go in that moment is not embarrassing, is it? And so we just need to accept that, okay, lots of people have that. Let's do something about it. Shouldn't be a taboo.
It was funny because that's how I knew who you guys were. And I didn't know what was going on at the time. It's that classic thing where there was a mad crowd in the middle of Covent Garden. I was like, what's happening? And I was going like, celebrity, like what's going on? And I was just shopping and then, because it's on a weekend, wasn't it? And I came out and I was like, there's a giant golden toilet here. What is happening? It's so bizarre. And then obviously I went on and Googled it and I found you and I just found your story fascinating. But how did you come up with that? Because I love a lot of your campaigns and like you're saying, you're not just on social media going buy our supplements, which a lot of people do, and that's why I don't think they was as successful. But you're about educating people and actually about finding solutions. How on earth did you come up with putting a giant loo in the middle of Covent Garden?
Yeah, I was, all we do is about bladder health. And when we, the community that we have, there is this massive long thread about public toilets that went on in the community. And actually all of our ideas are inspired by just people in the community. And we're like, all of my local public loos have closed down. How am I supposed to go out? This is crazy. And people are angry. And when I see such a visceral reaction from our community, we know we need to act on it. And so we thought about what's the best way for us to address this issue from a, campaign point of view, from making the government try to notice that there's something that is wrong, but also serve the people that need that. So we're like, let's just cut to the chase and just do a toilet. Let's just do a toilet. But then how do we do a toilet that grab people's attention? Okay, let's do it. Let's make it golden. Well, that's how it all comes together. It's a bit random, to be honest, but it was inspired by, I suppose, an unmet need from our community.
How much did that cost, out of curiosity?
Yeah, it was... So none of it is none of it is expensive, but when you add everything together, it's expensive. Okay. So the loo itself was about 4K. It's not expensive. And then we need to hire a battery. Yeah. So that was about 1K, and that powered the toilet. And in the middle of the day, it went out of battery. So then we need to then we take it into a Starbucks and charge it.
What? like walking around with this Golden Loo in Starbucks.
No, walking around with a battery pack. That is very heavy.
That's still,
exactly. And I even have to be around Covent Garden 1 a.m. Saturday evening to park our car, so to occupy a space. So it was quite a lot of hustling. And then we then need to do a survey. And so the survey is expensive. A PR agency is expensive. So all that adding together was quite expensive. But actually, if we're going to do it another time,
I was going to ask, are you going to do that again? Because
we know how we're going to do it. And I think there's so much longevity actually to the idea of doing it, because it genuinely just solves a need for people. And it is eye-grabbing, it's interesting. It's not an unmeaningful stunt for the purpose of a stunt, right? And so we want to do it again. And when we do it again, like, we know what are the elements that we do not need from the campaign, and we know what we definitely need for the campaign.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, there are lots of these campaigns which are just for stunts, but this one was actually brilliant, and it brings awareness. It
does,
because like people Google it and they're like, what's going on? And then they realize how beneficial it is. And so, that's why I was asking. So I was thinking, is this something that you want to do? Like, is this something that's going to be a regular thing and you could bring back? And what is the long-term solution for this in order to help bring more loos that are out there?
Yeah. So actually setting up a new loo cost about 60K. Yeah. So I think that's the reason why they're closing down right, left and center. Currently, this issue sits with the housing department, with the government, but actually we've been campaigning it should be sitting with the health department. And the other thing that I think we can look at is like a private-public partnership. So, M&S, obviously, everyone goes to their toilets. We have been having conversations with retailers to say, can you make your toilet public? And available to people. Let's pin it on, the Great British Toilet Maps that will increase your footfall to your health retailers. But also, then you can identify and isolate people that actually have that health need. So we've actually been talking to Holland & Barrett because, they have thousands of stores, across the nation, and that would just give thousands more toilet into our country instantly. So of course, this takes a bit of a while to activate it, but we're doing some work behind it.
So is Jude only for women? Because I feel like men also do have this problem, and men have the added issue, I guess, of having a prostate, right?
Yes.
I know
another ball problem.
Right, exactly. So men are going to be having these problems, and again, I think men are probably. I'm obviously over assuming this and stereotyping it. But men probably have a more difficult time talking about this even more, because a lot of men who have prostate problems don't want to talk about it, so it makes them feel less masculine. From what the feedback I've had of men that I know who have these problems. Yeah. So is Jude only for women? And what can men do?
Yeah. So Jude right now, all of our language and, our marketing is, for women, because we think that is the biggest health gap that we want to address. For prostate health, fortunately for this country, we actually have more awareness because of, high profile people having prostate cancer. And actually there's a lot more funding in prostate health and in prostate cancer. And so, we want to go into men's health for sure. That's definitely no doubt. But we want to do what is, the most dire need first, and that's women's health. But yeah, you're right. I think it is difficult for men to talk about it. And then some of our customers are male customers. And so they've seen the success of, their partners not waking up at night. And so, the household is using Jude products. But it is overall difficult. What we found quite interesting is men who are active, usually in sports, let's say cycling, football. These are the groups where they talk to each other about their health issues. And so if we were to start, the men's campaign, we will definitely start with the active, the sports, like the positive side of things, because they are the men that are actually the most open-minded and health conscious. And they also have the camaraderie of, let's do this together. So in summary, men's health in prostate is not as bad as women's health because there's a lot more funding.
That makes sense. And when you said about the high profile people, it just made me think that's often what it takes for action to happen.
Yeah.
And that's quite disgusting.
It is.
It's like you need someone famous to die before someone actually cares. And that's horrifying.
What does that mean to people like me, for instance?
Right.
Like a small potato. Does it mean that I have this issue and I die and it does not matter, you know?
Doesn't it make all these women feel so inferior because of it? And what are your thoughts on this then, in terms of, because you know that that's the case, and as disgusting as it may be, obviously does work. Do you know of any high profile women who are open about having bladder problems or suffering from UTIs that can come on board as an ambassador or something like that?
Yeah, so it actually has been a bit of a battle for us because we know from our customer base, there's so many celebrities that take our supplements. There's so many OBs, MBs, you know, take our supplements. But they would not want to talk about it in public, but they love what we do. And they have such good results with our products. And I can't name names, in this podcast because they specifically say no. But I think the time is so near for us to be able to get one person that can just say, I'm open about this and you have a solution and we can all solve it together, but we're still getting there. In the meantime, we have some amazing women who we call Jude heroes, and they are ambassadors for us. And they're not sort of, the celebrity that, you see every day on TV, but they are the influencers that have, 200,000 following. And they are the real women, the honest one. And they're so open and confident and funny as well at the same time. And that's why people love them. And they can just go on camera and say, yeah, I was wearing a giant surfboard between my thighs before and I'm no longer doing it. They say that. And we have other TV presenters that go on to our campaign. They're also Jude heroes and said, I used to pee in the back of my car in my daughter's nappy. And that is when I say enough is enough.
Oh,
and she actually share that so openly in front of camera. And, thanks to these women and thanks to channels that we can serve these videos, that we start to cultivate these relationships with, women out there who are like, that was me. That was me. I had to pee in my daughter's nappy one day. And, I don't want to do that anymore.
Wow. I can't believe people do that, and so brave of them to admit this, because, like you said, you're usually not the only one, and so by usually revealing something quite vulnerable like that, you are helping that so many people. I want to talk really specific now, because I feel like there are probably so many women out there, and people are listening to this thinking, like you said, your products have helped so many women. They're probably thinking, well, what if I have a UTI and I don't really realize it? Like, even when I'm just saying, like, I was getting up all the time, like, and I guess warning for anyone who's listening, if we might get a bit graphic here, because I'm going to ask you, like, what are some specific symptoms as well that people need to be looking out for? Like, because I think that it's not talked about, right? Yeah. We don't even learn this at school during, like, sexual health about discharges and the right colours and, like, the pain and like, urgency and how often is too often. I'd like to go into the nitty-gritty details as much as we can, because I think that there's going to be some people out there who are listening and thinking, oh, I don't know. Like, and do you don't want to go to the doctors thinking it's just nothing, or they'll dismiss you and gaslight you. So how do we look for symptoms and what we look for?
Yeah. So there are so many types of bladder issues, right? So we can go one by one. For UTI, you have this kind of feeling that it is slightly more difficult for you to go to the toilet. And then you will also see your urine is probably more yellow than it should be. Like, we have a Pantone chart of pee color on our website, and you can read that up. So actually completely clear is not great. A bit yellow is the perfect color that you want. Anything more yellow than this kind of semi-yellow color is not great. It means that you're dehydrated. And so when it's combined with quite a yellowish color, or even with a bit of blood, and you have pain passing urine, you have this kind of urgency that you always need to go. But when you go, it's just very little volume of urine. That is, that these are symptoms of a UTI, or symptoms for, more sinister, I suppose, condition that you might have with your bladder health. So when you have a UTI, definitely make sure you go to your GP or your private doctor, and you're having recurring complicated UTIs. I always advise to do a urine culture test. Always, because then you don't know what kind of bacteria is in your urine. And that is why I had UTI for so long, because the antibiotics that I was prescribed was not targeted at the strains of bacteria that was in my bladder and in my urethra. And of course, first I developed antibiotic resistance. And then second, I wasn't even treated at all. And then once I take all these, antibiotics, I think what will be really helpful is go on a course of probiotics, because it naturally helps you get that balance in. So that's, I would say, is UTI.
I think a lot of women do, like you mentioned earlier about sex, like a lot of women do develop UTIs after sex.
Yes.
That's a very common thing. And, especially juices being swapped and everything like that, it naturally causes some bacteria. And there's lots of myths around this. So I'd like to explore a little bit of that, just because I think that's a very common way of developing UTI. Is going for a shower after having sex helpful? And, does it make a difference if they ejaculate in you versus not? So because these are the things that women talk about. And it's, that's what I was saying, just so getting a bit graphic, but these are the things that we need to know, right? 100%. And so how much of a difference does that make? People have developed these UTIs after having sex, and what can they do?
Yeah. So I would say if you're prone to, UTI, definitely wash it, or even just a wet wipe after sex. And actually the NHS advice is to then go to toilet after having sex, because then you can flush out the bacteria that is around your urethra. And let's just talk about the truth. Some men are just quite dirty. Some men, they're just quite unhygienic, And sorry, after that, then you just have to take care of yourself, or just ask the guy to clean it up before the event.
Yeah,
and that's their responsibility, because it's our health, isn't it? And so, but to be honest, for guys that are not hygienic, it's not my type anyway. So
yeah,
so I think that's quite important actually for women to, before having sex. You need to know what's going to give you a good time afterwards, exactly. Right? You don't want to feel shit 3-4 days afterwards with a UTI because the guy did not clean up before having this event with you.
It's not worth it if you're having 4 days of pain. It's not worth it.
And maybe the sex itself is not that good anyway. So, I think the woman really needs to just say, love what we're going to do, but please just
wash first.
Wash first. And if he doesn't respect that, maybe he's not the right person.
Maybe you should have some wet wipes in your drawer next to you. Just and then just pass them on.
Totally. So I think these are the things. So if we want to go quite graphically, just quite honest, this is what I find to be quite effective to prevent a UTI. But cleaning up afterwards, drinking lots of water. Okay. I think when I was very stressed and quite anxious at work, combined with low immunity, and then combined with a period that I was just before my period, there was a moment where my hormones changes and fluctuate. That was the time that I'm the most, I guess, vulnerable to UTI. And I think a lot of women probably have that as well, which is during a time in a month, I leak a little bit, or during the time of the month, I might wake up more to go to the toilet, or I just have more of an urgency, or I'm more vulnerable to UTI. And it is because of the hormonal fluctuations that we're going through. So for women, we have an important sex hormone called estrogen, and it actually fluctuates. And when it drops a little bit every month, that, our pelvic floor and our bladder needs estrogen. and our urethra, all of those lining, they have estrogen receptors. And so when that drops, of course, your skin is less plump around those areas. Bacteria is more prone to cling on to your skin because of that. And that is why you see yourself having more issues sometimes in the month. And that explains, and of course, like during menopause, your estrogen level drops. And that is one of the reasons why people say incontinence is associated with older people, is because physically we just have less of that important hormone to continue fuel our organs to work properly. And so, when we translate all of that into medical terms and into how our hormones work in our bodies, suddenly it just makes sense. And it's not actually that embarrassing. But when you can then talk about symptoms, talk about how we feel, then yes, it is slightly scary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the advice is so useful, and I had to ask because I feel like I've had this chat with loads of girls before about what happens after sex, and that's really practical. So let's talk about the UTIs. What are the other bits of bladder health that we need to know?
So if you wake up at night to go to the toilet, and I think a lot of people probably have this experience before, either sort of, for some months you're having it for forever. Waking up more than 2 times a night is already a medical condition.
Wow.
It's called Nocturia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which literally means urinating in the night.
Exactly.
So it's actually a medical. Wow.
Yeah.
So when the doctors dismissed the fact that I was getting it 5 or 6 times, that was, it was.
You know why? It's because it's a quality of life issue. It's not a life or death issue. But this symptom have a lot of different causes to it, right? Some of the causes can be quite serious. Mm-hmm. Some of the causes could be hormonal fluctuation. It could be you're drinking a lot of water at night. It could be many different lifestyle issues. It could be because of overactive bladder. It could be because of UTI. And UTI actually does increase the likelihood of getting overactive bladder as well. And so it's important when you have, wake up 2 times a night for, more than a month or 2 consistently. It is an alarm bell. Your body is telling you that something is wrong. And so if the doctor tells you, dismiss you, then if you're not feeling great about it, I think it's quite clear that you have to seek alternative suggestion and advice from other people.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like exactly that. There's and I think with a lot of symptoms or a lot of things that you get, there are innocent reasons for what that's happening to you versus really morbid ones and dangerous, serious ones. And I think that the problem is doctors obviously have to see so many people. They're trying to filter it out in terms of level of importance, but you can't always be dismissive because you might miss one of the serious ones that's life-threatening. And like you said, it's a quality of life thing. So for those who are, getting up more than 2 times a night, what can they do? As you mentioned, not drinking water, I guess, later. What else can they do?
Yeah, I definitely would suggest not drinking, not, chucking water after 8 p.m.
Hey, that early?
Wow. If you're consistently having it and you're waking up 3-4 times a night, I think it's best to try out a few days that you don't drink water after your dinner.
Wow, that was my little herb.
Go to the toilet. Go to toilet before sleeping. That helps a lot. I think there are quite a few things that you might want to cut out, especially in the evening. Chocolate is a bladder irritant, so it irritates your bladder and make you want to go more. Citrus fruits, unfortunately, is also another one. Coffee, tea, alcohol, and there are some sort of diuretics that's quite innocent that might make you want to go to the toilet more. Asparagus.
Yeah.
I love asparagus. So packed with antioxidants. But every time I had lots of, asparagus, I know I have it because I get to do more often and it just smells.
Yeah.
I know. And so, they're healthy for you. But if you are experiencing these issues, asparagus, try to cut it down a little bit and observe the difference. And what else? If, when you go to the toilet, we have this term called elbow knee wee, which is the right way to go to the toilet, and practice that especially at night if you're waking up in the evening, because what that helps you lean forward when you do that, and that helps you empty out all of your urine from your bladder.
Interesting.
Yeah. And if you don't do that, and why we suggest that is because if you don't empty fully, your bladder will have residue urine, that little bit of wee sitting in your bladder. And that little bit of wee will trigger your bladder in the evening to say, time to go. Time to go, you know.
So you just put your elbows on your knees, and then it kind of is it clear with the way the pelvic floors
exactly,
so it makes you fully.
Yeah,
I love that piece of advice.
Exactly. I know, and like all the training workshops that I go to, or all the talks that I've given, I always say elbow knee wees. It's so memorable. And after like all the workshops, people usually just want to go to the toilet anyway because I was talking about it so much, and they will just be doing the elbow knee wees, and it's fantastic that we given these tools. Again, going back to that, right? Giving these tools to women. That it's so actionable, it's so easy. Yeah, so these are kind of the little things that you can do. And I think diet is so important. The ingredients that we have in our supplements are just so beneficial for urinary health. And actually, there's this very little known ingredient called medicinal pumpkin seeds that we use in our product. So I don't know whether you've heard of seed cycling. It's a trend going on social media where people just take different types of seed during their menstrual cycle.
Oh no.
Because we talked about how our hormone fluctuates a little bit, and taking different types of seed actually help you modulate your hormonal levels. It is not right now scientifically proven how it can actually help you, but people are more aware of actually you can modulate your hormone levels with diet, which is, I think a good direction to go. But pumpkin seeds specifically, there's so many research papers about it. And it is a traditional herbal remedy that has been used for more than 30 years to actually relieve overactive bladder symptoms. They're so full of zinc and magnesium and omegas and antioxidants. But what they do, they help your body release a natural compound called nitric oxide. And so it sounds scary, but actually it is not. It helps relax your blood vessels, but also help you relax your smooth muscles in your body. And your bladder muscles is a smooth muscle, which helps you relax it. So in the night, if your bladder is like, I need to go, it just helps relax it a little bit. So if you are having some issues, you're not ready for a supplement, just go and get some pumpkin seeds, sprinkle on your cereal, on your yogurt. That's amazing. It's very good for men, helps men with libido, helps men with testosterone building. So overall, it's just a superfood that anyone can have.
Love it. So it's been so clear that you're super knowledgeable about this subject. And so you've been building an incredible business. And so I want to talk to you about the business side of things, because actually at the end of the day, this podcast is about entrepreneurship. I absolutely have to ask you about your time on Dragon's Den, because it was a great episode. And, it's a lot of people's dreams to be on Dragon's Den. You said it was yours in the episode as well. And, I loved that they gave you so many compliments. You must have felt great about that, because their dragons were in awe of you. I mean, Stephen Bartlett wanted to hire you. And it was, they thought you were phenomenal. They loved the business, but you guys obviously couldn't agree on a price. And I want to talk through all of this. So you've already done phenomenally with Jude. You're super successful. You raised at the time, you were saying 5 million. I know that you've raised more money than any other female entrepreneur in the seed round, right? And I feel like there's so many women out there, any business owners, who just want a fraction of the success that you have. And so many people would snatch that chance for Dragons. They only wanted 3% of your company, right? 3%. And you were like, no, that's too much. And I watched that, and I'd already met you at this point when I watched that episode, and I was just like, you are so brave. Like, there was like, you were just like, actually, no, do you know what? I know what we're worth, and your money's not good enough. I was in such awe. Like, I know it was amazing, but talk me through all of that. Your time on Dragon's Den, how did you feel? And what gave you that, confidence to say no to Dragons?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what the show didn't show on TV was how the Dragons was actually really tough on me. They were
I saw a little bit.
tough.
And that's the other thing. I could see a little bit. They were asking you really difficult questions, and my God, you composed yourself. I mean, I don't know how you did it, because they were tearing some of that stuff apart and like asking about competitors and numbers and what else was tough. What did they do?
So one of the dragon was like, I think you underestimated how much time it would take you to go to these retailers, because at the time we already had conversation with Boots, with QVC, and with Holland and Barrett, and we were saying that we're gonna, go into these big retailers soon. And he did not believe it. He didn't believe that we're gonna go there. And then Stephen Bartlett was like, you spend too much on marketing. This is never gonna work. You don't have product market fit. These are the things that the show didn't show anybody. And I was so impatient, to wanting to persuade them we have product market fit. I want to persuade them it is not cheap to break a taboo. It's not cheap to wanting to invest in research and development in women's health. And I said those things to them, but Stephen Bartlett is still not convinced, because his kind of MO is like, we want organic growth and social and virality, and that's what he is amazing at doing. And so actually behind the scenes, they are very tough. They're really, really tough. But you know what is important for me is we took some of their comments in a constructive way. So after the retailer conversation, I was just like, let's get this. Like, we have to. And now we're in Boots, we're in QVC, we're in Well Pharmacy. We're going to go into 500 Holland and Barrett stores in September. And that's happening. It already happened when the show aired. And then with Stephen Bartlett, I think his advice is so valuable. Like, our marketing cost was 3 times less than what it was before. And so, all of that were, a bit of a wake-up call to be like, I know that marketing cost is high, but I also know we need to get it down now and immediately. We put so much focus doing it last year, and we do it so much more effectively. And when I say all of that, actually, it is just better content, more valuable content. We hire ambassadors to say it like it is, and let's not skirt around the topic and just say it. And that resonates with so many more women sitting, behind their phones and looking at our ads. And so the advice and the criticisms in Dragon's Den fuel us to want to do better and do more. And I believe I can without their money. Of course, it would be great to get one of them on board. Like, I still really want, Emma Greedy or Deborah Meaden to be on board. I love, 2 of them. They're just amazing people. But the reason why I rejected the offer is, first, I know the worth of the company. I know the potential. I know what we can be. I think second, we have existing investors that invested in Jude when we were nothing, when we only have a deck, when nobody believes in incontinence. And who the hell is Peony? They invested 2 million, 4 million in me and a deck. And they believe that the potential in the company. So on Dragon's Den, we already have the packaging. We have these retail deals. You have all of them. And they're still believing that it's not enough. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. So did you feel like you couldn't prove, what more can you do to prove your worth when you've got 5 million investors already before you even had a product? Now you have a product, you have all these deals, you have a professional brand, you have it all, and they're still not seeing the worth. Was that kind of what made you feel?
Yes. And I think it's not about the worth now. It's about the potential worth that they can't see. And, we all know when we're younger, we all know what we are capable of doing, and we know where we want to go. But when you talk about your dreams, somebody will be like cheering you on, and somebody will be like, Sabrina, you'll never be able to do it. And those people, you don't want to be around them. You don't want to accept that offer, because you know that they are always going to be looking at you as lesser than what you think you're going to be. And I think it's important in the journey of doing things that are so much bigger than yourself to have people who believe that you can. And I think it's important at that moment, what really made me decide to not take the offer. Of course, like, I want to be responsible to our existing investors. I want to, I want to promise them that I'm integral to them. But then second of all is, so many women, including myself, when we face figures of authority, we seem to wanting to give in more. But actually that's not the right thing to do.
I'm like, and honestly, I find it so amazing listening to you because it's the most mature approach I've ever seen towards any business thing and you're still 20, I'm 30, okay? Because I was like, but it's that insane level of maturity. I don't mean age, I just mean because maturity in business and because you're thinking so long term and you're thinking not just financially and potential of this shiny big name dragon to come in and utilize their brand, because let's face it, that's what a lot of people do it for. You're thinking about how it internally makes you feel and your self-worth and surrounding yourself with people who truly believe in you and are real cheerleaders and you didn't feel it from them. And what's so fascinating is actually when you see their cutaway and what they said after you left that room. And to me, it was all about them. They were saying, she's going to regret that because doesn't she realize what a big deal it is to have us as part of it? It was all about them. That's what I noticed. And it was like, she's made a mistake because we are God's gift to business and she needs us. It wasn't that they were like, she's incredible. I wish that she could see the potential of the investment and, get our support so that she could be bigger. And to me, maybe you're right, because the fact that they didn't truly believe in you and the brand, but they saw a business opportunity, but they weren't fully in it.
And they're not fully in it. I think that's the important thing, right? The term believe means you believe in it without seeing it. And we all have gone through that. We believe in ourselves without seeing how we can be successful. We imagine that we can be successful and we believe in that imagination. That's manifestation, isn't it? And so if they can't believe in that, it's difficult to even start a partnership. But you know what? Do I regret it? Do I regret having a partnership with Emma Greedy? Yeah, some nights I was like, if we can have her, that would be great. But that's a different alternative. It doesn't exist, that alternative. So what I have right now, let's maximize what I have. I know I'm going to do well. I think Jude is going to be amazing. And I have so many people that support me.
So let's talk about your progress since then, though, because obviously they were worried about competitors. They'd worry about product market fit. That was recorded a long time ago and it took a while to air. Since then, what has been your progress with Jude?
Yeah, so we have grown we've grown about 10 times actually since since we filmed the episode, and then since the episode was aired, we grew about 4 times. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So you are rapidly growing and hitting the market, and your brand is brilliant. Your messaging is clearly on point. You have a community, which I think is so powerful. Do you think the Dragons regret not investing?
I'm sure they won't regret it because every day they see so many amazing companies and amazing founders. And I think, I think about it as the timing perhaps wasn't quite right. Or maybe at that time, at that very moment, maybe it wasn't quite a good match. And so we come across all these opportunities every single day, and we make these decisions every day. And so whether they regret, I regret, actually it's not what I think about. What I think about now is like, it's great that I got a chance to see these amazing dragons, and they were very complimentary about, me and the business. Using that, I'm going to do everything that I can to build this. And if in the end they regret, then so be it. If they don't regret, then so be it. It doesn't actually change anything. It's just a piece of information,
And I think how you've handled it is phenomenal. Like you've taken all the criticism and actually used it to your advantage, and the compliments and I guess boosting your confidence. That's incredible, knowing that they believe in you to an extent. But because you've mentioned Emma, I'm guessing she's the one that you like, right? What's stopping you reaching out now?
Like I reached out,
and
she came back to me.
So what's happening? Tell me.
I said, would you like to be our non-exec director? And our business has grown this much. It will be the same deal that I'm going to propose to you now as I was proposing to you in the den. Maybe we couldn't quite convince you then, but do you think we can convince you now with an NED? So she didn't reply my first email. She didn't reply my Instagram messages. Of course, because she's so busy and she's, a big shot, right?
I love the persistence.
And then I got Trini to ping her a message. So then she finally came back to me. Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, Trini is amazing. I love her. But Emma basically very, very politely came back to us with such a thoughtful and considered response. And she said, we want to make sure everything that happened on TV is consistent with everything that happened behind the scenes. So unfortunately, even I really love the business, I couldn't, do what I didn't commit to do on the show, because BBC is such a great channel and Dragon's Den is such a great show, so we can't undermine their validity and credibility. And I was like, very well put. I totally understand where you're coming from, but shall I see you in Shark Tank? That's what I replied. And she didn't come back to me after that. I was like, oh, maybe I sour that with the Shark Tank. I don't know.
Wow. So essentially, even if they wanted to accept the offer, they couldn't, because they have to stick to, if they decline that offer, they can't go back on their word.
I think that is what Emma took as an approach. I don't know whether that is a standard thing with Dragon's Den, but that's at least what Emma took as an approach.
Interesting, because I feel like in business, that's not even the right strategy. Like, people make mistakes all the time, and you've basically shown them the potential that they were worried about. So essentially, they've told you an issue that they thought they had in their business. You've gone away and proved them wrong. In a way, that's what happens in business. That's what they want you to do. And so for me, it's remarkable. And I'm very surprised about that. And it's a bit of a shame. But then let's talk about Stephen Bartlett, because he was singing your praises. He clearly wanted you. I mean, didn't he say something like, I want you to run all my companies? Or something like that, which is kind of nuts. You haven't mentioned him. Is there not something there that you could think, could you not do something with him? I mean, he's obviously got a phenomenal personal brand. He's given advice that you've actually taken on board about the marketing. What's the potential look like there?
I didn't reach out to Stephen Bartlett because I felt like there just isn't that magic. Or maybe I'm just too biased. I don't know.
Biased about what?
Biased about, I love his podcast. I listen to his podcast and I listen to the things that he said. But, when it comes to intimate women's health, I just felt like it's going to be difficult for him to talk about this and be forefront or an icon of this brand. It's difficult. Like, this brand, we need a brave, honest, loud woman to be championing this cause. And I just felt Stephen Bartlett, although he is amazing with the things that he does, it just didn't feel like there was a fit with the image.
But does he need to 100% relate to the brand? Like, you can have an ambassador versus an investor. As an investor, he could still bring his, obviously, experience, his credibility, and having him championing the brand with his voice and believe in the actual business. He doesn't have to understand it per se, but he can empathize with it. And as you said, if you want to get into men's health, then there's potential for him to lead that bit. Is there not something there that maybe you can look at? Is that, I know that we all kind of do this, but we have this ideal in our head, right? And you have this perfect person you want it to be, and Emma obviously fits that bill completely. But, is that something that's maybe holding you back because you're just looking for that person? There's potential there.
It could be. These are the kind of blind spots that I think it's great to be talking to people like you to open my mind up. And I think, founders, the best trait about a founder is we're so headstrong in what we believe. But then on the flip side, then we sort of close down opportunities that we otherwise wouldn't see if we're not as headstrong. So, having that balance and having someone like you to help me with it, it's just, I'm going to email.
this is it. It's happening.
Yeah.
This is happening. This is amazing. But like, I feel like that's it. And Stephen, you owe me, by the way. But this comes out because, you know, I've sorted out a deal.
Yeah.
But I feel like, but that's it. That is the value of the founders. And I think that when you're so passionate about something, you are ultimately incredibly passionate about this brand for all the right reasons. You have this vision of what it looks like, and you can't see any other way. And sometimes that, like you said, that it is a blind spot. It does hold you back, and it doesn't always have to be that way. And I think that's the importance with diversity and people with that innovative thinking, to be surrounding yourselves with them, and that's it. And I think that's it. It doesn't mean that you're any less brilliant. It means that you're very focused on one vision.
100%.
That's what you need other people.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I just think like it would be really great to hear if you've got any advice for anyone else who is planning to go on Dragon's Den, because obviously you were so prepared. Your pitch was amazing. And like you said, they didn't even show how much they grilled you, but I already felt that tension. And you composed yourself so well. I mean, I was very impressed, but it felt like to me like you were definitely feeling that pressure. What advice would you give to others who are about to go on Dragon's Den or want to?
So English is not my first language.
That's also what makes it more impressive.
Yeah, and I actually have written my script, memorized, written down many, many times on paper. I revised it so many times. I recorded it. I play it back. I listen it like it is a Spotify top 1 tune on my phone. And I was just doing everything that I can. I even hired a speech coach for me, for Dragon's Den. And every time I close my eyes, I just envision myself being on the den and, you know, hello dragons, and be that kind of founder that I see myself to be on stage. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have these worries around putting yourself out there. Worries around, is this opportunity going to tarnish my brand? Is it going to actually lead to worse outcomes? Or what if I don't accept that offer? Forget about all these questions and just go for the opportunity. I actually applied to Dragon's Den and Apprentice. I applied for everything because I just want an opportunity to send this message out there about what we're doing at Jude and why this topic needs to be out there. And I forget about all the noise because they're just noise. You know, I'm very focused, as you said. I'm focused on delivering one message very, very well and serve this topic. It's justice. And that's just all I'm thinking about.
So on that note, because I feel like that, you know, you are very driven. What is the message that you want to give, and what change do you hope to see in this industry?
Yeah, I think the message that I want to give to all women is our health is actually a collaboration of our own individual efforts, our courage and bravery, our discipline and habits, and with the NHS, it's a collaboration. And so, you know, NHS, private doctors, they can all give you tools, but you are the ultimate beneficiary and ultimate, I guess, owner of your own health. And I think we all at Jude believes in that. And that is why it's not just a supplement we give you, but it's like a holistic plan that we give you to improve your health. And I think at the end of the day, if you're healthier, you're more hydrated, you sleep better, you're more yourself, your life will be more full of colors. You can do everything that you want to do in your life. And I think that is what I really believe in. And then I think, you know, words for the industry would be, it has been like that for the last 50, 60 years. Like, we are here, we're going to make a change. We're here to disrupt. We're here to make an impact. We're here to invest in R&D the way that you didn't do it in the last 50, 60 years. And so watch out.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see what happens with Jude and, you know, help spread the word as well. It's been amazing. And thank you so much for coming today. It's been such an insightful episode.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Yay.